anything we do with students that technically is a mentor type of experience is really a high impact practice. It could be student employment, service learning opportunities out in the community with faculty. Just getting together with students in a less formal setting can be a learning experience, and it can be hugely impactful for students. So I'm trying to get everyone on campus to start thinking in that way, that everything we do in our interactions with students are high impact practices, as long as they're positive interactions. They can be high impact negative practices if those interactions are not positive, right? So we need to think about that as we go forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Louis Rodriguez and let him take it from here. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you all. Please enjoy your lunch. And I do want to thank Mark and the center and everyone else really for inviting me to come in to speak about mentoring, especially mentoring student employees. We are a small enough group, so I'm going to give you a few moments here, but I'm going to want some quick introductions. So take that last bite for a moment. I do just want to know who's in the room, so if I can get your name and your department, and if possible, how many student employees you employ in your department. That'd be great, just so we can really tailor comments and ideas to what's relevant to your department. So again, I'm Louis Rodriguez, Associate Vice President for Student Affairs. I oversee a few different areas in student affairs, primarily the Career Center, and really anything to do with the professional development for our students and getting them ready for that next step, whether it's entering the world of work, applying to graduate school, professional school, and also just professional success while they're here at UTEP. And so for many of our students, that is working on campus, right? I'll go through several resources that we have available for you that you may not know exist. And we can also brainstorm what else you might need to support your students. Okay, so let's start off with, of course, some goals that I have for us today while we're together. One, I want you to be able to identify resources to support UTEP's commitment to student employment. Again, there are some new resources, some existing resources, but I packaged them together to make sure you were aware of what's available to you, and I want to make sure you know how to connect to those. So we'll cover those. And then I really saw two clusters of work where we could embed mentoring for our student employees. And one was through professional development. And so we'll explore some ideas for mentoring students through professional development. And we'll also do that by connecting student performance evaluation and feedback with mentoring, and how those can both be really successful channels for embedding mentoring conversations, and we'll talk about how to structure those and what we mean by mentoring exactly, right? So I'm hoping to hit those three things. A little bit of numerical context at least. So 70% of UTEP students report working during their time at UTEP. So a student population of about 25,000 translates to 17,000 students who report working. 3,300 of those students work on campus, and that's both undergraduate and graduate. 3,300 is a very healthy number. That's a very healthy percentage for most campuses. But you can see the vast majority of our students who work are working off campus. Those are experiences that we can't control. They are at grocery stores, restaurants, the mall, retail, call centers, whatever it may be. And just to let you know, we are trying to find our highest number of employers who are off-campus employers and work with them to help them create a more student-friendly environment for our students, sharing the academic calendar with them, sharing UTEP Edge goals, philosophy, things like that. But again, we can't control that. What we can control is the experience, though, for these 3,300 students. And that's what we're trying to do. Elevate across the board and across campus the on-campus student employment experience. So because these are students and employees, we as UTEP then have a dual role as their employer and their educator, right? And so that's what makes working on campus so valuable, is that we are supporting their academic student success. We want them to succeed, we want them to thrive, but we also, very much need their help in our offices and departments, and we also want them to grow and develop from these opportunities. So we're at that sort of crossroads of being employer and educator, and so I'm hoping that we can share some tools and ideas that will be really helpful for you all who have student employees in your areas. So as Mark mentioned, the on-campus student employment is one of 10 UTEP Edge experiences or high-impact practices. You may know this research, you may not, but research shows that involvement in at least 2 of these high-impact practices during a student's time in college greatly and positively impacts a student's retention rates, reduces time to degree, increases sense of belonging. It hits a lot of goals, institutional goals for UTEP, which is why this has really become the cornerstone, or one of the central pieces of the UTEP Edge is pushing involvement in these practices. And as Mark mentioned, on-campus student employment really is that flagship Edge experience because so many of our students report working. They are very proud to say that they've worked throughout their time in college. If you've been to a UTEP commencement, Dr. Natalicia always asks, please stand if you've worked during your time at UTEP. 70% of those students are standing every time, right? So that's just part of the UTEP experience. And we really want to make it as consistently excellent across the campus as we can. So why is on-campus student employment considered a high-impact practice in the first place? There are actually 6 criteria that make something a high-impact practice. These are them here: significant time commitment, interaction with diverse others, high expectations for performance, frequent, timely, and constructive feedback. We'll spend some time on that. Reflection and integrated learning. We'll also talk about that today. And then discovering relevance of learning through real-world application. Now, I'll be honest, we spent about 1.5 to 2 years exploring what does on-campus student employment look like at UTEP from department to department. We've interviewed students, interviewed employers, the various leaders of departments, and we're finding that it's very inconsistent, as you might imagine. Some departments are doing X, Y, and Z activities, and some are doing nothing, and some are doing much more. And so, of course, we can't control or mandate necessarily how a department handles their student employees, but we can give suggestions, we can provide resources, and sort of set an ideal expectation for what that is. And so we'll share some of those. I'll share that what we're lacking a little bit here is on the feedback part at UTEP. We're hearing that a lot of departments aren't doing a lot of formal feedback for their students. Maybe not even any informal feedback. Students just come, they do their hours for the week, and then they leave with no sort of guidance or sense of how their performance is looking. So that's something that I think we can really improve on. Some of the benefits of working on campus, and these are just a few of many, but of course students can earn money and save money. They can develop their professional skills. It's convenient for them, right? They don't have to commute somewhere across town. They're right here on campus. They can build a network. And the reason I have this one highlighted as well is that students tell us that one thing they value the most is opportunities to network. It's something that they're very nervous about doing, don't have a lot of practice or experience doing. But if they can do that on campus in a safe setting, where they can get their nerves out, make those mistakes, get some feedback, so when they're doing it, when it leads to professional opportunities, they nail it. That's what they're telling us that they want more. And so if we can embed that into the experience, even better. It helps them connect to the campus, and also, of course, it's a student-friendly work environment. There are many, many other benefits, but these are the highlighted ones. These are the ones that students tell us, this is why I'm choosing to work at UTEP instead of a retail location off campus. It's these reasons. So again, we're talking about elevating this on-campus student employment experience, and each of those EDGE experiences has a core set of skills that we're developing. We've identified these 5 as the 5 primary skills that students will develop as on-campus student employees: communication skills, problem solving, teamwork, confidence, and critical thinking. This comes directly from the students and some on-campus supervisors who we surveyed, and we talked about the skills that they see students develop. My first question to you all is, what other skills do you see your student employees developing, either through your jobs in your areas or maybe in other units across campus? Besides these 5, what other skills are students developing? So again, you can see the on-campus student employment experience is really rich, and so our commitment is that we make it consistently rich and consistently excellent for our students to really benefit from their experience, and that they don't see it just as a paycheck and just as, well, at least I'm saving gas money and I don't have to drive to the mall. It should be so much more than that, right? And so we're taking the show on the road a little bit. We're doing some departmental specific trainings, and so we'll talk about some resources that I'll share with you actually here. So this is a combination of new and existing resources. The first is to know that we actually have a director of on-campus student employment. His name is Christian Corrales. It's not his entire role. He does have other duties and responsibilities, but he is really a primary contact for any department that needs any help with supervising student employees, hiring them, mentoring them, professional development. His email address is there. I told him that I'd be sharing his name and contact information, so he's expecting emails and calls from you. He can come and do a training, one-on-one consultation, meet with your student employees and do some workshops. He stands by, ready to help. And this is a new development, all because of the UTEP EDGE is really helping us create structure and formalize this. We've also created handbooks for student employees and student employee supervisors. We've never had these on campus before. Again, this is where we were pretty inconsistent. Some departments had created some internally, some had nothing. So we took upon ourselves to create a very general handbook, one for supervisors, one for the employees. It's the same content in each, it's just how we're addressing the audiences. This is full of documents, links, resources, and ideas that help from how to write a job description and post, to recruiting, to interviewing potential student employees, all the way through the performance evaluation. But aside from having PDFs of the handbook, this website has a lot of other really great ideas. The do's and don'ts, the HR implications of hiring student employees, videos, and then for students who are interested in finding a job, they can go here to get sample resumes, interview tips, and then the link to actually apply to jobs is there. Many of you use JobMine, right? How many of you use JobMine to post and hire your students? So about half and half. That's the next resource here. If you're not using JobMine and are just using word of mouth or using students from your courses, that's fine, but consider using JobMine. It's a centralized portal where you can set up your department as an employer, set the criteria that you're looking for. You want these majors, these GPA parameters, whatever it may be, and students will then apply and you'll receive those applications. It just streamlines the whole process for you and makes it not manual, which is really helpful. So again, we're not requiring that, but it's a tool there for you to use and it's free. The last three are three events that we've created here at UTEP that we find really helpful. The first is student worker training. So every August, we have about 250 to 300 students go through student worker training. It's a half-day workshop that covers the basics of being a student employee. We know that we can't train to each individual department, so what are some of those general things? This year, we focused on emotional intelligence as a student employee. What does that mean? How does that affect your communication skills? Conflict resolution we talked about earlier. And so each year we try and focus on a different theme to make it fresh and relevant, especially for those repeat attenders. This one does have a fee associated with it. It's about $20 per student, but the students receive breakfast, a t-shirt. This year they received an emotional intelligence book with some activities to follow up and other handouts and giveaways. So it's all just at cost, obviously there's no profit there, but it's just to get the students connected, let them network with other student employees in other departments, and then they go back to their home offices and then share the information that they've gotten. What we're seeing is many times departments will send maybe their more senior student employees to this and then ask them to come back and deliver that to the rest of the team, which is a nice model there, builds in some leadership. So consider that. That's every August, but we usually start promoting it around May for signups. It does hit capacity every year, so once you see that email, do sign up right away. We are limited just in space on that. The second event is student employee supervisor training. So when we had that first event, we had supervisors signing their students up and they said, well, hey, what about us? We've never gone through any training. No one's ever told me how to supervise a student employee. Do you have anything for us? And so 2 years ago, we created this supervisor training. That's a free, about 3 or 4 day workshop where we talk about strategies, again, on hiring, recruiting, managing, conflict resolution, having some of those tough conversations when you have an underperforming student and when do you hit that line of letting the student go versus using it as a teaching moment and developing them. So that's now 3 years in the running. Again, that always hits capacity. Be on the lookout for that. We'll promote that in the spring as well. And then finally, one more event, Work at UTEP Job Fair. That's for any departments looking to hire students and maybe you're having a hard time promoting or getting the word out. You can sign up for a table, have your staff members there and meet the hundreds of students who come through who are looking for jobs. You can even do an informal interview with students who might be interested, and then that can lead to maybe a more formal interview. That happens the second week of classes for the long semesters. So this one's already passed, of course, but look for this event in the spring. It's a great way to meet students who are interested in working. So all these resources are here for you. Maybe you didn't know any of these existed, or only a few of them. Please feel free to use them. Carla will send out the PowerPoint with all of these links and email addresses so you have them and don't feel the need to scramble, right? So those are there for you. So again, the first area that I thought we could embed mentoring discussion with the student employment experience is professional development. What we hear from supervisors on campus is, okay, they know mentoring is important, they know professional development is important, but they don't quite know where to start and they don't know what to focus on. You can do professional development on so many things, right? How do you know where to start and how do you dig into that? Well, every year, you might be familiar with these organizations and publications like Forbes, Fast Company, the National Association for Colleges and Employers release top 10 lists. These are the top 10 skills that employers are looking for across industry, across fields. And so remarkably, these top 10 lists come out every year and they look exactly the same from year to year. They might be in slightly different order, right? 3 might be 5 and 4 might be 6, but it's the same skills over and over again. These are skills that employers are looking for. We looked at those lists. Then we also asked our deans, we asked UTEP employers, we asked our faculty, what skills do you think students should develop as they enter the world of work? it was the same 9, 10, or 11 skills over and over again, and they're not surprising, right? So we think that's a really good place to start with one of those top 10 skills that we know is universally valued across industry. Nothing really surprising here, right? So we have then translated these into the EDGE advantages, the set of skills that we want UTEP students to leave our university with. So if you want to do professional development but don't quite know where to start here. Refer to this slide, pick one of these areas. You cannot go wrong with helping your students develop in some of these areas. And we'll talk about how to develop some of these specific skills soon. But again, this might be a really great starting point. And you don't have to be some professionally certified coach to do this. Rely on your own professional experience and your own judgment on how to support our students. We're all successful professionals in this room. We know enough to help coach our students on many of these areas that we know are going to help them regardless of their area, right? So I'm hoping that that list will help you. Start here. Okay, so if you're interested in some professional development ideas for individual students, if you only have one student in your department or you want to take a very individualized approach to professional development, here are a slew of ideas that I'm hoping some of them are interesting to you. So you can review your students' resumes and have a discussion about their career goals. How many of you, raise your hand, have actually reviewed your students' resumes since they got hired? Okay, so not quite half. This is a really good starting point because you can see, most importantly, how are they describing working in your office on their resume? What we see a lot of times is that students are underselling their experiences. They might have a lot of responsibility, great front desk duties, their conflict resolution skills, and they write student assistant desk clerk. And they're missing all of these chances to talk about their duties and responsibilities. And so in an interview setting, they're also underselling their experience as well. So this is a great thing that you can do one-on-one. Show me how you're writing about working in our office. It also may tell you about their experience working in your office, right? And how are they interpreting that? So connecting those resume reviews and their career goals, if you want to go a step further, you can even conduct some mock interviews. If you happen to know the field that they're entering and have some knowledge about that industry in your research area, set up a mock interview. Again, let them get those nerves out and talk about how to be comfortable talking about themselves. We find that our students are sometimes humble to a fault and are really uncomfortable selling themselves. That's feedback directly from employers who come on our campus. You know, UTEP students struggle in selling themselves. So help them get there a little bit faster by doing some mock interviews. Related to this, help the students reflect on their top skills, assets, and contributions. Again, we see students underselling those resume blurbs. So if you know that they helped you achieve maybe a shorter wait time for students coming into your office or helped save resources in some way, enhanced a program or initiative, make sure that they know how to write that and talk about that, most importantly, in an interview. Too many times students say, yeah, I was on campus, it just helped me pay my tuition or with gas money or spending money. Not really understanding the value and the learning that happens. So you gotta sometimes draw that out for them and help them put a pin on that. You can help them in creating or updating a profile on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn continues to be a growing source for recruiters in a variety of industries to find that first cut of applicants for open positions, or to proactively recruit people who might not be interested in their organization, but they want to send that recruiting message out there. So LinkedIn is free. There's a free version of LinkedIn, and this is something you can help students and mentor them in how to set up a profile. What message are you sending through your LinkedIn profile? What kind of career aspirations are you writing in there? Even how are you dressing in your headshot photo? And I put a note here, the University Career Center will do free headshots for students to use on the LinkedIn platform, which is great. They just need to contact them and they'll set it up, really nice professional shots. But mentor your student on how to dress for those, right? You have corporate recruiters looking at these photos. It's not really the time for a UTEP sweatshirt, right? It's more business casual or business attire. Also, identify professional development opportunities across campus. So this is a great example, right? Mark and the Center for Faculty Leadership and Development are offering all sorts of workshops. HR offers, I don't know how many hundreds a year, all of which are open to students. Everything from brushing up on your Excel skills to communication to conflict resolution, all of which would be really relevant to student employees. There may be others that I'm not even aware of that are happening, right? Discipline-specific, college-specific, explore those, talk that up with your colleagues, but also consider doing some internal trainings or workshops. use a talent that you have in your own department and explore what you might do. Ask the students, how can we help you develop a skill? What would you like to learn about? Can we talk about the structure of UTEP? Can we talk about higher ed and the higher ed landscape in Texas or across the country? Ask them what they need, and they'll tell you. You know, students will tell you what they want and what they need. And then think creatively about how to offer that internally. If you want a head start on that, again, contact Christian and he can help you sort of structure that, or contact me. I'm happy to help brainstorm and set up some ideas on how to do that. Now, if you're looking for ideas on professional development, maybe for your entire team, which a lot of departments do like to do, here are some ideas. Consider scheduling a team building activity. So UTEP's Rec Center offers a ropes course. They do a low ropes and a high ropes course. The feedback from that is always off the charts. People really, really enjoy going out there and doing that. It's a nice team building activity, develops communication skills, confidence, trust among the team. It's also good for non-student employees. Those of us who are full-timers often use this for team building as well. There is a small fee related to the ropes course one, so just keep that in mind. There's a budget implication. UTEP Student Engagement and Leadership Center, which is just across the union here, has trained folks who will do the true colors of personality inventory and workshop. That is a really helpful tool in helping students work more effectively on teams. So understanding my norms, my values, and how they interact with yours, and when we're on a team together, how does that interact, and how can we be successful? It's a free resource, and we can connect you with someone to come in and do that for your students. It's about an hour-long workshop. Also, StrengthsFinder. I myself have been facilitating the StrengthsFinder workshop maybe 10 or 12 times so far this year. I've done it with the School of Pharmacy interns, School of Pharmacy faculty, staff. This is sort of an elevated version of True Colors, talking about strengths and how to lead with your strengths. If you strike now, we can probably get you a free book related to that as well for your students. So for that one, you just contact me. That's about an hour-and-a-half workshop on StrengthsFinder and leading with your strengths. You can watch a TED Talk video and discuss as a team. You all know how excellent so many of these TED Talk videos are. Choose one that interests you, watch it over lunch one day, buy some sandwiches, watch it as a team, and then discuss, reflect. Again, you don't need to be a trained facilitator to do this. Just ask students' impressions. And if you'd like some recommendations, we can certainly share some that we have found effective for students. One is called the Golden Circle. You've used the Golden Circle before, right? That's a really good one that we've used with student development as well. You can bolster your student team's knowledge of UTEP history by scheduling a walking tour. Remember, the Lekong is in the center of campus. Most of our students have never even set foot in it, even though they walk by it every day. So there are set tour times every week, I think 2 or 3 days of the week that's available. It's a nice little diversion. It's free. Again, pair it with an afternoon coffee break or something. Get students out there, and they learn a little bit more about UTEP history and the Bhutan-UTEP connection, right? It's really important for us to understand that. You can also invite an alumni guest speaker to come into your office. So maybe one of your former student employees who has graduated, moved on to a really excellent program, either at UTEP or another institution, moved on to a great employer. Invite them in to talk about what working on campus meant for them and how they're using their experience and skills now as a full-time employee. Again, it also hits that networking goal that students are always wanting to do more of and practice more. So think back to students who graduated maybe 2 or 3 years ago, see what they're doing if they're willing to come back and talk to your current student employees. Okay, so the other area where I really thought mentoring could come into play for student employees is around performance management. And like I said earlier, we found a lot of inconsistency around this. Most departments aren't doing this in any formal way for their student employees, unfortunately. And it's understandable. It takes time to do performance evaluations. It's even a chore when we have to do it, right, as part of the UTEP process itself. And so to carve out time to do this for our student employees, especially teams of 20, 30, 40 student employees, that's a big time commitment. And so I understand that hesitance, right? But it really does push students to be able to verbalize the learning and the experience that they had working in your department, and it makes it a valuable experience overall. They leave feeling like they left with something, they got some feedback, and what I like is that it gets them comfortable in a feedback process in general. They're going to go through performance evaluations no matter which industry they enter, right? So let's get our students comfortable now hearing criticisms, hearing the positives, and how do you take both of those? How do you respond to both of those? We don't want students to sort of freak out and not know how to handle either of those when they're in the real world. So let's model that for them now, again, in a very safe setting. So the first idea is entrance interviews. So an entrance interview is something that you would do maybe the very first week that a student employee starts with you. And it's just a way to get a sense of where that student is as they're starting their employment with you. If you tend to not turn over students very frequently, that's okay. You can still use this once a year with your existing students because things change, ideas change. So let's get these copies out here. You can feel free to use these questions, use them to make up your own questions. And this isn't a form, as you can see. It's really just questions, guiding questions, prompts. And what we're suggesting asking here is things like, we'll ask your new student employees, what talents do you think you can use in this job? What talents would you like to develop further? How can this experience help prepare you for your future academic work or prepare you for your career? How can this experience help in your personal development area? And then finally, what activities or experiences do you hope to participate in your role here in our department? So you can see all the things that you'll get from that, right? You can start creating a little inventory of expectations of students. So, okay, I know that Danny wants to work on social media, so when that comes up, let's assign that to him. And I know Andrea wants to work on event planning, so when we have a chance, let's give her that opportunity to do it. You get that at the outset, so when all these projects come up, you're not just assigning them randomly, and you're not just asking who wants to work on this. You're assigning it, very thoughtfully. You also get a sense of where students feel really confident. I think I can use my technology skills really well, conflict resolution skills really well, but I want to develop public speaking. So again, at the beginning, you have this inventory, and if you do this with all of your student employees, then you have a nice grid, right, or a database, and then where to connect students to opportunities. So consider using this form or something else, and again, it doesn't have to be formal, just have those conversations as you onboard your student employees. So let's move on to providing feedback. So we want you to think of performance evaluation as something that's ongoing and done in real time, rather than some annual download and students are maybe caught by surprise that you were unhappy with some part of their performance. This should be ongoing and conversational, right? There might be some formalized moments, we do encourage that. In student affairs, at least, we encourage a mid-year and end-of-year formal evaluation process using the form that we just handed out. So we'll talk about that in a moment. With student employees, you might also want to consider using a coaching style rather than a strictly supervisory style, right? So there was a mistake here, let's correct it, let's move on. A coaching style, again, embraces this educational mindset that we're in here at UTEP. So it should be more maybe relationship driven, not event driven, thinking longer term. And also it should encourage self-reflection and learning. So not just you type this button instead of this button next time on this code, right? But more, here's the big picture, here's why we adopted this system, here's the impact it makes on students and our university. So giving that big picture and that context, students always say they appreciate, rather than being given just very discrete tasks without knowing how it plays a bigger role in the system. So how else are you using maybe a coaching style to give students feedback? It sounds like there's some of that happening here. Monica, I mean, what you described to us is really this coaching style, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we handed out here is this student employee performance evaluation form. This is what we use in all the departments in student affairs, and this was sort of lovingly pieced together from colleagues at other universities. We added the UTEP flavor to it, and we tailored it to our student experience. And you can see it's a combination of a 1 through 5 scale, plus a rubric, plus places for reflection. So if you choose to use this form or something like it, yes, it is an investment in time. You can't be done with this in 10 minutes. It's going to take some time on your part and on the student's part. But at the end of completing this and the conversation that comes with this, it's a really rich dialogue around the student's performance, did they match expectations, and where they can go from here, right? So the way this works is the students would complete this form first. There's student lines everywhere very clearly marked. Then they would hand it to their supervisor. The supervisor then completes it. And then you set up a formal conversation. Hey, let's talk about this. And so on every dimension, there are 7 dimensions here. Students rank themselves 1 through 5. Then the supervisor ranks them. And then you can talk. Okay, you rated yourself a 5 on this. I think you're more of a 3. Let's talk about that. And here's why I think you might have been at the 3 level, right? So 5 being exceptional and 1 being on the lower end. The dimensions of this, as you can see, are things like customer service, communication, professionalism, teamwork, quality and efficiency of work, again, you see the consistency with that list of skills we talked about earlier, right? If you flip, you'll see that the 8th dimension is blank. So that is if a department wants to add a department-specific dimension. It's just relevant to you. Maybe it's lab safety and protocol. Maybe it's, I don't know, equipment cleanup, whatever it may be. You are welcome to write in the name of that dimension, the criteria for it, write the rubric for it here, and then use it as part of your evaluation process. This is downloadable on the website as well, and a smaller version is in the handbook too. This creates opportunity to, of course, discuss performance, but with specificity. This form really pushes you to be very clear and very specific about the feedback that you're giving. And then that goal section at the end of this form is a prime area for mentoring conversations. Okay? All right. Well, I'll stick around. Thank you all so much for your participation today.